In this beginner-friendly video, I'm going to teach you everything you need to know to hit the ground running. We'll be looking at single target and also AoE or the Mythic Plus builds that you're going to be going with in patch 11.0.5. Hello, my name is Javier, and if you don't know me, I'm a very beginner-friendly YouTuber for World of Warcraft, obviously, and I do every single spec in the game. So please click that subscribe button if this video is helpful for you, which I sure as well hope it is. Because otherwise career down the drain. So let's get started. Fire Mage. It's a really fun spec, and honestly, in the last few seasons, it's actually gotten easier. If you are a beginner, I would always say with your gear and stats, prioritize getting a higher item level of gear over everything else. You may hear a lot of people talking about stat priorities and waiting. Honestly, if you're still gearing up and you're not absolutely maxed out in eye level, then generally, eye level is all that matters. We do have Critical Strike, which is a really interesting one in Fire Mage because sometimes we're guaranteed crits in Fire Mage, and people often think, oh, well, if we love crits as a Fire Mage, we must want loads of crit. But it often isn't the case because we're guaranteed to crit on a lot of our spells anyway. But anyway, enough of that. Haste makes things happen faster. Mastery. Now, this is the interesting one for Fire Mages. Ignite. Your target burns for an additional %. The more mastery you have, the higher the percent. Over 9 seconds of the total direct damage caused by a lot of your spells. So the TLDR is when you are doing spells, you're going to be doing an extra burning amount over a few seconds on the target. So that's happening passively. Lastly, versatility increases damage and any healing you do and reduces damage you take. So the way that Fire Mage works is, as you can see on this little weak aura I've got in the center, this grayed out one, it's called heating up and hot streaks. That is basically what we want to do. So from left to right is our priority list here. One thing I want to make clear, this is not a rotation. This is a priority list, meaning on the left here is your top priority. And we work our way down, meeting different conditions, and this is our lowest priority. In an ideal world, all we'd ever cast is Pyroblast, because that's our top priority. But of course, that isn't going to happen. This little bit down here is the rotation inside our main cooldown, which is Combustion. If that sounds overwhelming, don't worry. It's pretty much the same rotation, just more condensed, and I'll explain that as we go. So, if we use our top priority spell, Pyroblast, look how long it takes to cast. Oh my goodness, I've died of old age. Okay, it takes a really long time to cast. What a hot streak and heating up does is pretty easy to show you in the passives in here. Getting 2 direct damage critical strikes in a row with fire spells will make your next Pyroblast or Flame Strike. Flame Strike is the area of effect or AoE version. This is going to start off with a single target rotation or priority. So we're looking at Pyroblast here. It will make it instant cast and deal double the amount of normal ignite damage. So if I cast Fire Blast and get a crit, and I cast Fire Blast again and get a crit, you can see I get a little ribbon around my Pyroblast, meaning my Pyroblast is now instant cast and deals double the amount of our mastery fire damage. Hopefully I'm making sense. If this is already sounding overwhelming, don't worry. What I do in these videos is I recap bit by bit and then we put it all together. So guaranteed by the end of this, you're going to walk out in flying colours. So our main goal is to get critical strikes of our spells to trigger an instant Pyroblast, basically. So when we get 1, can you see here we get this buff here? And if we go down to my buffs on the left, it's called heating up, which basically means you're halfway there. If I get another one, it then turns into a hot streak and I get my instant Pyroblast. So let's look at how we're going to get those crits, or how we're going to trigger the hot streak. So the second priority on here is Fire Blast. So just to be clear, we're only using Pyroblast when it's instant cast here. If it's not instant cast, we go down to the next step, which is Fire Blast. Blasts the enemy of fire damage. Castable while casting other spells, which is very useful to know, and it always deals a critical strike, meaning you are guaranteed when you use it to get a heating up and then again to get a hot streak, okay, for an instant pyroblast. You are guaranteed that 2 fire blasts will equal a hot streak. Now, what we're then going to use is shifting power. Draw power from within, dealing arcane damage to enemies nearby. We don't really care about that though, that's not why we're using it. While channeling, your mage ability cooldowns are reduced by 12 seconds over 3.7 seconds. So when we're using it, we're reducing our major cooldowns, like Combustion. Makes sense then why we'd want to use shifting power. Literally to get our big cooldowns off cooldown even quicker. Which then leads us to our actual main cooldown. What I'm going to go through is the cooldown, so in the Combustion rotation at the end. Let's just get to grips with the main rotation first. So what does Combustion actually do? Well, in fact, do you know what? I'm not even going to talk about it now because we'll talk about it when we go through it. So just know that that's our big cooldown, and the rotation will change a bit, sort of, when we use it. So we're going to use instant pyroblasts when we have a hot streak. We're going to use a fire blast if we have heating up to then generate a hot streak. If our Combustion is on cooldown, we're going to use shifting power to get it off cooldown quicker. We're going to use our cooldown. And then after that, we're going to use Scorch. So, Scorch scorches an enemy for fire damage. It's guaranteed a critical strike and increases your movement speed by 30% for 3 seconds if you cast it on a target below 30% health. So it's only going to crit when on targets below 30% health. And by the way, you can cast it while moving, as you can see. So when you're on the move, it's a really, really good spell to use. Now, we do actually have this talent here. So here's where we get our Scorch spell. We then have Improved Scorch. Casting Scorch on targets below 30% health increases the target's damage taken from you by 7% for 12 seconds, and that can stack twice. So you always want to make sure, when the target is below 30% health, that you get this Improved Scorch debuff on the target to the maximum of 2 stacks. But of course, that's only going to be at 30% health and lower. So we're going to use Scorch at this point in the rotation to make sure that we're getting the Improved Scorch buff up, which again is only at 30% health or lower. After that, we're going to use Fire Blast to get a heating up. So what I'm saying is here, we're only using Fire Blast here if we already have heating up, if we're already halfway there. If not, go down and then use it here to get the heating up, and then here sort of thing to use it to get the full hot streak, if you know what I mean. You don't actually need it on your action bar twice, of course. It's the same button, but I'm just doing it to visualize better for you, the rotation. After that, we also have Phoenix Flames, which is our second priority for heating up, etc. Hurls a Phoenix that deals fire damage to the target and reduces damage to other nearby targets. This also always deals a critical strike, meaning we can also use Phoenix Flames to guarantee critical strikes to get our heating up and our hot streak. If we have nothing else to use, we will just use a fireball. Throw a fiery ball that causes fire damage. Each time your fireball fails to critically strike, it gains a 10% increased critical strike chance, and that effect ends when it critically strikes. Now that we've gone through all that, let's just go through the rotation, excluding our Combustion, to see how it all fits together. Have we got a hot streak? No. Let's use Fire Blast to get the hot streak. Okay, cool. We've got a heating up. We're not using shifting power because we haven't got our cooldown on cooldown. Are they under 30% health? No, we're not going to use our Scorch then. Okay, so pretty much what we're doing at this point is just using 2 Fire Blasts to get an instant hot streak, and then we're going to use our remaining one to heat up, and then it's going to be using Phoenix Flames to actually get those instant ones. And then after that, we're just going to use Fireball. And that's really as simple as that gets. When you put it together like this, where you're like, can I use Fire Blast? No, it's not instant. Can I use Fire Blast? Okay, yes, I can. Are they under 30% health? No. Can I use Phoenix Flames? Yes. Okay, got an instant Pyroblast. Cool. Okay, I've got an instant Fire Blast. Cool. Use that. And then I'm just using my Fireballs as a filler to get instant Pyroblasts. And when you suddenly see it together like that, you're like, wow, actually, it's really simple rotation. Let's now add in the Combustion to it. So what does Combustion do? Engulfs you in flames for 14.5 seconds, increasing... Oh, how charming! I can't wait to be engulfed in flames. Increases your spell's critical strike chance by 100%, so that's all your spells, right? So every spell you do is a crit, and granting you mastery equal to 75% of your critical strike. So you're going to get a load more mastery as well. Castable while casting other spells. When you activate Combustion, you gain 2% critical strike damage, and up to 4 nearby allies also gain some critical strike chance. So because every single spell is guaranteed to crit, basically what happens when we press Combustion is we go to this rotation, where we obviously use Combustion. We're still going to use our instant Pyroblasts, but you'll notice when I use Fire Blast, we're getting a Pyroblast. I use it again, we get an instant one. We use Phoenix Flames, we get an instant one. I use Fire Blast, we get an instant one. We use Phoenix Flames, we get an instant one. Fire Blast, we get an instant one. Fire Blast, we get an instant one. Instant one. Instant one. You're going to notice that you are just going to get an incredible amount of instant Pyroblasts, as you are literally seeing me demonstrate there. And that is the amazing thing about going into Combustion. You actually are going to get a lot more instant Pyroblasts a lot more often. So the rotation just gets basically turned into this tiny little rotation. You're only going to use Scorch, again, if they're under 30% health, to get that improved Scorch buff up. Okay? So in Combustion, it's basically just switching like Fire Blast, Pyroblast, Fire Blast, Pyroblast, Phoenix Flames, Pyroblast, and you're just literally switching them out for instant Pyroblasts every second. It's really, really fun. So let's look at the talents we have under our Combustion. We have Improved Combustion, which is where it grants the mastery. We have Kindling, your Fireball, Pyroblast, Fireblast, Scorch, etc. Reduce the remaining cooldown of Combustion by a second. Flame Strike, Critical Strikes also do it, but that's for AoE. Fiery Rush, when it is active, your Fire Blast and Phoenix Flames recharge 50% faster. And that's why we can cycle it so much quicker. But also, we have Unleashed Inferno. While Combustion is active, your Fireball, you get really tongue-twisted saying these. Fireball, Pyroblast, Fireblast, Scorch and Phoenix Flames deal 60% increased damage and again reduce the cooldown on Combustion. While Combustion is active, Flame Strike does more damage and reduces the cooldown as well. So what we're then seeing here is, just Combustion is just making us go absolutely berserk, basically. We also have From the Ashes, Phoenix Flames deals increased damage is increased, and your direct damage spells reduce the cooldown of Phoenix Flames, which, again, is from Fire Blast as well. And then when your direct damage spells hit an enemy 25 times, the damage of your next 2 Phoenix Flames is increased, and they refund a charge on use. So when we have our Combustion, let's just have a look at that Combustion again, because it's so fun. So we go into Combustion, we use a Fire Blast twice, and we get an instant Pyroblast. We use one more, but we've then got an instant one. We use one again, we've then got an instant one. We then use Phoenix Flames, we've got an instant one. We use Phoenix Flames again, we've got an instant one. We then use Fire Blast for an instant one. We then use Phoenix Flames for an instant one. We can then use Phoenix Flames again and get an instant one. Fire Blast for an instant one. Like, it is literally crazy. You are just switching back between instant Pyroblasts and hot streaks pretty much instantly in that rotation in the Combustion window. So the rotation doesn't really change in the Combustion window. It just gets condensed because it's so fast. Your top kind of priorities, you don't have a chance to press anything else because you're just doing your top priorities. But with Phoenix Flames, again, because it gets you instant Pyroblasts. So let's put it all together now properly and have a look. Can we instant Pyroblast? No. Let's Fire Blast to get an instant one. Cool. Okay, let's use our Shifting Power to get our Combustion off of cooldown here. And it's off. Nice. Okay, so let's Fire Blast and Pyroblast. Literally just swapping them out like this. It is so fun for instant Pyroblasts here. I'm doing this with keybinds, you can see on the bottom of my screen. It is really, really, really fun. And I'm literally just doing instant ones pretty much non-stop here. And then it's like, are they under 30% health? No. Okay, I'm not going to use Scorch. Can I use Phoenix Flames? Yes. Okay, instant Pyroblast. Are they under 30%, etc.? No. And then, again, you're just kind of going through the motions here, going down the priority list, using instant Pyroblasts as you can, and using Fireball as a filler, basically. And that is pretty much the fire single target rotation. Now, I'm not doing it perfectly here because I'm kind of looking at what I'm recording and talking to you while I'm doing it. But a lot of people ask that I do at least show them the rotation. That's a sort of improvement I'm trying to make here to actually kind of show you what we're doing and why we're doing it. So hopefully showing it to you like this is, a lot more useful. But it's a really, really fun, really bursty rotation. It's one of my favorite specs in the entire game, to be honest. So let's now have a look at what we're going to change in the Mythic Plus side of things. So if we go through to Mythic Plus, and I'm going to look at the hero talents as well, by the way. You can see only a few talents are changing. So let's look at these first. We're changing to Scold. Scorch deals 300% increased damage to targets below 30% health. So we no longer get the improved Scorch, but we do get it doing an insanely more high amount of damage. That's because we're going to be, attacking more targets. They're not going to live as long as they would in a single target, raid environment. So it makes less sense. Majesty of the Phoenix we get. Casting Phoenix Flames causes your next Flame Strike to have its critical strike chance increased and damage increased. And we also get Flame Strike damage is increased by 25%, and Flame Strike and Living Bomb apply Mastery Ignite at 100% increased effectiveness. So one thing you'll notice here, we're adding a lot from these three talents into something called Flame Strike. Now, I'm actually going to go back to the single target rotation, only because I have it set up here, my action bar. And you're thinking, right, well, it's going to make sense in a second. Because all we do in the Mythic Plus and AoE rotation is we add in Flame Strike. Calls down a pillar of fire, burning all enemies in the area and reducing their movement speed. So we're going to switch that out for our Pyroblast. So instead of Pyroblast, which is obviously single target, we then use Flame Strike. So I'm just going to cast an actual hard-casted one. And you can place it wherever you want. And as you can see here, Flame Strike is going to cause down a pillar of burning in this whole area here. And it will go instant with a hot streak, just like Pyroblast does. As you can see here. So when I get a hot streak, you can then cast them. And you're just going to cast that instead of Pyroblast. That is the only change to the rotation in AoE. And that will be both here and in the Combustion window. Okay, you just switch it out. And that is the only change to the rotation. Lovely. Now let's look at some of the other important talents that underpin how we're playing as a Fire Mage. I'm not going to go through ones like this, Call of the Sun King or Flame On. This literally just says things like it increases the number of your Fire Blast charges or increases the number of your Phoenix Flames and makes them always critically hit. These are things we already know. We're only going to now look at what ones that, are really important. So there's Controlled Destruction here. Damaging a target with Pyroblast increases the damage it receives from Ignite, and this stacks up to 50 times. Wowee. Fire Blast and Phoenix Flames increase your mastery by 2% for 5 seconds, and that can stack 3 times. And oh, by the way, guys, if this video is helpful for you, please do click that subscribe button. It really, really helps support me as a channel. Leave your comments down below. I love to hear what you guys are thinking about the specs, etc. And leave a thumbs up if you are enjoying the video too. We have Improved Scorch, we've already spoken about. We have Intensifying Flame, while Ignite, which again is our mastery, if you've forgotten, is on 3 or fewer enemies. It flares up, dealing an additional 20% of its damage. So on single target, that's, really great. Same again, if Phoenix Flames only hits 1 target, it deals increased damage and applies Ignite at a higher effectiveness. Ignite actually deals more damage while Combustion is not active, and Fire Blast spreads Ignite to 2 additional nearby targets during Combustion, which is really nice in AoE environments. Each consecutive critical strike you deal increases critical strike damage you deal, and that can stack as well. Damage dealt to targets below 35% health is increased by 7%, and that's on all spells, not just Scorch. Casting Pyroblast or Flame Strike while Hot Streak is active has a 6% chance to repeat the spell cast at 50% effectiveness, and it does count as consuming a hot streak. So basically a double hot streak. And then this is a really interesting one, Hypothermia. While Combustion is not active, consuming a hot streak has a low chance to cause all Pyroblasts to have no cast time and be guaranteed critical strikes for 6 seconds. So when you cast your hot streak, when you use that Pyroblast, you have a small chance of this happening, which is like, crazy Pyroblast time. Now let's look at Sun Fury. We're going for Sun Fury in both Mythic Plus and single target. Number 1, every 6 times you consume a hot streak, which is using your Pyroblast or Flame Strike, conjure a spell fire sphere. While you're out of combat, you will actually slowly conjure them as well, which is nice. And what do these do? They increase your spell damage. Consuming a hot streak gives you some haste, and that can stack. This one increases the effectiveness of your blazing barrier. More on that shortly. When you use Combustion, it's actually extended if you have more Spellfire Spheres active. Conjuring a sphere increases the damage of your next Pyroblast or Flame Strike. Consuming Burden of Power also causes your next cast of Fire Blast to strike up to 2 nearby targets, and cooldown Storm of Meteorites. This is all happening passively, but I think it's just good to know because the hero talents are, well, interesting, I guess. Codex of the Sunstriders. Over its duration, your Arcane Phoenix will consume each of your Spellfire Spheres to cast an exceptional spell. Upon consuming a Spellfire Sphere, your Arcane Phoenix will grant you Lingering Embers, which just, again, improves your spell power. Basically a fancy way of saying it increases your spell power. And lastly, Memory of Allah. OMG. While under the effects of a casted Combustion, you gain twice as many stacks of Mana Cascade. When your Arcane Phoenix expires, it empowers you, giving you 2 seconds of Hypothermia. So you'll get some extra free instant Pyroblasts, basically. And that's the hero talents. There are also a few over here I want to talk about. Namely going to be, probably just this one actually. Time Anomaly. At any moment, you have a chance to gain Combustion for 5 seconds, 1 Fire Blast charge, or Time Warp for 6 seconds. So that is really, really cool, don't you think? So yeah, basically sometimes you're going to see a little time anomaly thing come above your head, and you're either going to get a Fire Blast charge for free, Time Warp for 6 seconds, so Bloodlust for 6 seconds, or you're going to get Combustion for 5 seconds. So sometimes when you're doing that and you're casting your normal rotation outside of Combustion, if you're like, hang on a minute, why am I getting all these free Pyroblasts? That could be why. But, because we're always just using the free one when we get it, it doesn't actually matter that much why we've got it. Just be happy, thankful, and use it, okay? And now, finally, I'm sorry if you're starting to get a bit overwhelmed, but these are things we need to know. Let's talk about some of the other things and utilities we have at our disposal. I would say to you as well, if this is overwhelming, what I would say is just really focus on learning the rotation and practicing it. And once you're really happy with the rotation, then go back through the talents and just read through them one by one and see how it comes together. Then look through the spell book and look at your other spells available, and even your passives, which mostly come from talents anyway, but then just look through them and see how it comes together. And what I like to say is it's my three-step process to learning a spec is that just look at the rotation. Do not care about why you're pressing spells. Just learn what spells in order to press them in. And then go, okay, why am I pressing them in this order? Which is where you more look at the talents and things like that, and your mastery, and your set bonus. And then go, cool, now I've got a really great understanding of that. I'm going to add in the third to the holy trinity of learning a spec, which is what are my utility spells and things like this that actually enhance me playing it. And then you don't get overwhelmed. So we have Alter Time, altering the fabric of time, returning you to your current location and health. Really useful, but can be a bit weird to use sometimes. We've got Counterspell. Now, this is one that I do think you need to learn about ASAP. This is your interrupt, to interrupt your enemy's spell casting. This is so important, especially in Mythic Plus, in dungeons, in the open world even. Interrupting enemy spellcasts can really be a win or lose situation. Your team members will love you if you use it a lot, and they will generally not like you very much if you don't use it at all. It is one of the biggest pet peeves in Mythic Plus that people do not interrupt enough. Beginners, veterans alike, it is honestly, I would say everyone would agree, it is the number one thing that people don't do enough that annoys people. Because if your enemy casts a spell, it could kill you. There's no reason to not be interrupting. And you could say, yeah, but I could be doing damage spells when I'm pressing that button. If you're all dead, you're not doing any much damage at all, are you? It's so important that you interrupt as much as possible. Greater invisibility is really useful. Mass Barrier, cast Blazing Barrier on yourself and 4 allies. What is Blazing Barrier? That is over here. Shields you, absorbing loads of damage for a minute. Melee attacks against you cause the attacker to also take fire damage. It's just a good defensive that we can use. We can polymorph enemies here to turn them into a sheep, etc. Mirror image, this is also useful. It creates 3 copies of you, which will actually attack your enemies. Now, it generally doesn't do a big amount of damage, though. While your images are active, damage taken is reduced by 20%, and that's really why we're using it. Shifting power, we've talked about. Shimmer is amazing. Basically, if I turn off these action bars, and if you would like to get my UI, by the way, which generally looks like this, you can get this on my Patreon. All of this UI, apart from the little WeCore in the middle, is made by me, bespoke, and I can help you install it. Details profiles, raid frames I use, which only show up when you're in combat, etc. Minimap, all of this is all made by me. Available on my Patreon. I can help you install it. I can help you with anything else, in fact, if you want help reviewing your logs, improving. We have a VIP channel in Discord for that. And it, of course, supports the channel. But anyway, Shimmer teleports you forward. It's a really great movement speed utility you can use as a mage. What else do we have? Oh my god. Time Warp, of course. This is your Bloodlust for mages. The biggest cooldown in the game. You increase haste by 30% for all party and raid members for 40 seconds. Generally, your raid leader or group leader will tell you when to use this because it affects the entire party. And like I said, it's the biggest cooldown in the game. I think, guys, that is everything. Oh, there's Frost Nova, which will freeze enemies in place for a few seconds. Really useful there. You can conjure food and stuff. And obviously portals, but that's not really a combat thing. Oh, Ice Cold. I knew I was forgetting something. Ice Cold. Your blood runs cold, reducing all damage you take for 70% for 6 seconds. And while it's active, you heal by 50% of maximum health over the duration. But you can't use it again for another 30 seconds. I mean, it's on a 3-minute cooldown anyway. But yeah, there you go. That is all the utilities that we have. Again, if you're finding it overwhelming, the rotation, etc., just go back through this video and just watch the rotation bit maybe a few times. As long as you know that, that's the most important bit. If you are looking for other spec guides, like Arcane, maybe, that's a really fun one, or other specs from other classes, check out the playlist you now see on screen, and don't forget to subscribe, as I always update my guides every single season, every single expansion.